Oh, I think we're live now. Yep. Okay. Let's see. I think we're live. Okay, remove that one. Remove that. And okay, are we still good? I think we're still good. Sorry, guys. I want to make sure that we're actually live here today. If you guys can hear me okay. Okay, cool. There's Andy. I can always count on Andy. He's got us. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, I have a really, really interesting show lined up for you guys today and some cool stuff to talk about. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But while we're waiting on everybody to jump on, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. First of all, not sure if you guys, cool. Okay. Andy says now it's live. Perfect. All right. Cool, cool, cool. Um, so I'm not sure if you guys are aware of it or not, but we have a really, really cool and very useful Facebook community. If you guys are not aware of the fact, we actually have a couple of different ones. And the reason why I have these titled and set up the way that they are is because I believe in the power of local networking, doing deals locally. Now, obviously, you guys probably are watching this. You probably know I live in Idaho. I have a meetup every month in Portland, and then I also have another community in the southeast part of the country in Pensacola, Florida. And I kind of have deals going in a lot of different places. That's because I have a really, really big, huge, gigantic network. And so I kind of get to pick and choose the areas that I want to personally do deals in. And because I have done that, I've actually set up different Facebook communities and different groups. And so I wanted to just take a quick minute and highlight the fact that we have three very specific different groups. One, of course, is right here in the Treasure Valley. It's called the Treasure Valley REI Group, Treasure Valley Real Estate Investors Group. It's on Facebook. You guys can find it there. Then, of course, the one that most of you are probably watching from, and that's the PDX REI Group. PDX, obviously, if you're not from Portland, then you might not know what that is. But if you're from Portland, I'm pretty sure you got it figured out, right? So the PDX REI Group. And then another one I wanted to kind of highlight real quickly today, and I might just see if I can share a screen here. I've done this before in the past and with somewhat limited success, but let me see if I can actually figure out how to, I can't wait for one day when we actually have enough going on with this channel and this broadcast where we can actually bring in somebody to actually run the kind of MC things for me and kind of help me from the background. But I'm not going to be able to do it today. I don't want to disrupt the show too much, but I have a really, really great community. It's the Pensacola, Florida Off Market Deals group on Facebook. You guys go to that group. We got over 3,000 people in that group. That's the Pensacola, Florida Off Market Deals. If you guys have anything to do with anything on the Gulf Coast, feel free to go check that out. Oops, turn that off there for a second. Calls coming in. Anyway, so if you guys are doing deals anywhere in the southeast, so it'd be the Gulf, really the Gulf area, the Gulf states. But the reason why I like that area is because there's a lot of people that have kind of discovered that Pensacola Beach, Destin, Fort Walton Beach, those areas right there are really, really great spots for, kind of vacationing, for if you have like a retirement type of, a life that you're putting together. I know people that are looking for stuff down in that area. So I come across deals every once in a while. I'm on there looking for deals. So if you guys want to be a part of that group, feel free to join. Now, I wanted to get into the broadcast today because I kind of put this statement out there: why some people never get it. That was the name of the show. So if you guys saw that, by the way, if you guys saw that, give me a thumbs up or give me a 1 in the comments. Just let me know that you're tracking, that you saw that. Why some people never get it. So why some people never get it. Let me know if you actually saw that in the in the kind of the banner, the heading, because the reason I put that in there is because of the fact that I know that there's some people that they seem like they're always stuck on getting ready mode. They're always stuck on, studying things out, and they're not really ever actually doing it. Does that sound like somebody that I'm talking to today? I mean, I know that there's a lot of people out there that are like, they're still trying to get their feet wet and they're trying to figure things out. I totally get that. But then there's other people that are constantly learning. They're constantly looking into getting into real estate. They're constantly kind of trying it out while they do a bunch of other things. And I want to talk what I personally think is the reason for that. I want to talk about that today. And I actually think that this might be helpful to you. So if you're tracking, if you're kind of know what I'm talking about, if you're looking forward to that, then let me know. The title of the show today, if I'm going to title it, is Why Some People Never Get It. Why Some People Never Get It. Sherry says she saw it. Yeah, hey Sherry, good to see you there. Peggy says she has not seen it. Okay, Peggy. Well, we can see you now. I want to just set the stage for this. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, you guys remind me or let me know. Give me a 1 in the comments if you remember that I talked about. I highlighted a deal down in the Hollywood district of Portland, and it was on 42nd Avenue. It was a deal that I had. It was an off-market deal. I had it under contract. I've been working with the sellers, and I put together a really, really cool pitch deck. Do you guys remember that? Give me a 1 in the comments if you remember that I kind of went through this pitch deck that I did. Yep. Okay. Sherry says she remembers that. Cool. If you guys remember in that pitch deck, I actually have put together this really nice pitch deck. And by the way, I'm always looking to tweak things. I'm always trying to see where I can improve. So instead of just doing your typical, a 1-pager, sending it out there to my buyers list, I thought, well, what if we put together an actual pitch deck? We go through and highlight the deal. And I spent, pretty good amount of time. Peggy says she remembers it. Yep, Peggy, you saw that one. Peggy, of course, she knows exactly what I'm talking about. She's been in this property a couple of times because Peggy is my ride to and from the airport a lot of times when I come into town. So, but I brought that up because that particular deal in that pitch deck, I think I had offered that property to as an off-market deal. And the deal was like this. It was 400. I think I had put it at $475,000. Okay. $475,000. It was either that or it was the balance of the loan plus the 130 that I needed. So I back it up a little bit and say, I have this deal that I've had under contract for a couple of years. I have controlled the property. I have the power of attorney. I already paid the sellers their equity. And the reason why I never took possession, full on title and everything, is because of the fact that this particular property had a lien against it from I believe is from some kind of a group or fund that was related to COVID money. And so we had the property, under contract. We were going to go ahead and, Peggy says it was 140. Okay, cool. Thanks, Peggy. You guys have a better memory than I do. And yes, Peggy says she has been in that house. That's exactly right. Anyway, this particular deal was, I thought was a really good deal because it was a 2.99% interest rate. Okay. And what I was offering is I was basically saying, hey, somebody else can come in and take over this deal. They can take over this contract. They can basically take my position on this. All they have to do is buy me out. Okay. And I sent that out. I had a couple of people that asked for the information, and some of you guys kind of shared that around. So I thought it was a pretty good deal. And you guys have heard me say this before, the market will tell you if you've got a deal or not, right? So sometimes what we think is a really good deal may not be as good a deal as we thought it was. And how we'll figure that out really quickly is the market will tell us. Okay, does that make sense? So the market actually tells you if you've got a decent deal or not. Now, this property, it needed some work, no doubt about that. And so I had priced it the total price so someone could come in and take over the mortgage, 2.99% interest. And in addition for taking over the mortgage, all they had to do was just pay me out what I had into the property. Okay. So Peggy says about 140,000. Okay. Now that means that was, I think I want to use numbers that make sense to me, but I think that put the numbers at 475 total is what I remember. Now it could be wrong. Could have been 480, but if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. Okay. Now, here's what's interesting is I had a bunch of people that looked at this property. I had people that even considered buying it. Some people, one guy in particular, he went down and saw it 3 times. He had his home inspector go through it. He had his wife come down because that's important, right? You're going to make sure your wife gets in on the deal. And all this work, all these calls, all this stuff back and forth, emailing, showings, all that stuff had happened. And at the end of the day, he just kind of like got cold feet, kind of held back and kind of fizzled out and never really heard anything from him. And so I it was funny because like I don't pursue people. Like I don't go like if they don't call me back, then I don't really call them back. In other words, like with sellers, I've learned I do not try to convince people of anything, right? You either want it the deal or you don't. But I had done this really nice pitch deck. I had several people say, "Wow, everything that I need to know is in there. All the information. This is really, really good." I completely get it. I had links in there and all that stuff, right? And yet at the end of the day, nobody bought it. And I don't know exactly how many people saw that pitch deck. Um, but I do know this, that it was a pretty good deal. Like if you're talking about if you're into real estate investing, it was a good deal. Okay. But nobody bought it. Nobody went for it. So what did I do? I decided to go ahead and just list the property. So I got the property listed. This would have it would have gone live on MLS, I think on Thursday of last week. Might have been Wednesday, about a week ago, maybe tomorrow. And what's crazy about it is within 24 hours of it going live, I had a full price offer, and that full price offer is a 30-day close. Earnest money goes hard after inspection. Okay, so what that means is we don't, people put in earnest money, say, "Hey, I'm serious about this. I'm going to put a little bit of money in the escrow to show that I'm serious." Right? I'm in earnest with my offer. Now, a lot of times that money can sit there, and if for whatever reason down the road the financing falls through, the deal, they just back out for whatever reason, they can, a lot of times that earnest money can go back to the buyer. So what I said was, I said, "Hey, I want this earnest money to go hard." In other words, it's non-refundable once the inspection period is over. So they have like a 10-day inspection. We're already, like you said, a couple of days into that. So they're working through their inspection. They're doing all the normal stuff. Obviously, we want everybody to do sewer scope, radon, home inspection, all that stuff that, a lot of you guys obviously know about. But at the end of the inspection period, if they don't find some reason that they don't want to do it, then they forfeit their earnest money if they for some reason don't close after that inspection period is over. Okay. By the way, is this tracking? You guys, like, give me a one. I like the one, right? Give me a one in the comments if this is tracking, if this makes sense. Okay, because I want to make sure that I'm actually hearing from you guys and I'm actually connecting with you guys there. Okay, so got a couple of ones coming in. Give me the feedback because that helps me to know. Because by the way, if you guys have never done this before, it's not a lot of fun just talking to a little green dot on my laptop here. So I wish I could see you guys' faces at least, and I can know if you're listening, if you're paying attention, or if you fell asleep. Okay, but so earnest money going to go hard, non-refundable after inspection period. Blah blah blah. Here's the thing: I told you guys it was a full price offer. It's a full price offer at the price that I listed it at, which was $495,000. Okay. So if my math is right on what it is that I think I was asking off market. Well, look at this. Dave Biz says, "Pay attention." All right, you guys, you heard it there. Pay attention. If my math is right, this is a $20,000 increase in what I was asking before. A $20,000 increase from my off-market price, okay, and without offering the what do you call it? Without offering the low interest rate. So basically, someone's gonna have to come in and get their own loan to buy this thing, okay? Hold on a minute. I've got a little message here. Trouble streaming to Facebook. It may be an issue. Check with Facebook. Okay, I'm not gonna. Let's see if I click this button, what does it do? Continue to Facebook. See if it's actually streaming. I don't know if it's streaming. If you guys are on Facebook and watching, give me a one or let me know if it's actually. Is anybody watching this from Facebook right now? If it is, give me a comment, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't know if anybody's watching this from Facebook. I just got a message from my stream service that Facebook might be down. Let me get back to my story. The reason why I think I can sell a property for more money on MLS, well, there's a couple reasons, but let's go back and reset the tone. I have this deal, right? I control the deal. I offer the deal. By the way, it's a really good deal for me. I never bought this property to sell it. I was going to hold on to this property until Jesus came. It's in a great location, great neighborhood, fantastic little property. Would not take much to make this thing just cute as a button. And we had great Airbnb property, midterm rental property, walk scores through the roof, coffee shops, restaurants, library, the Hollywood Theater, everything within a 5-minute walk. This is a really, really cool property. Did not want to sell it, but because of circumstances, us moving to Idaho kind of threw off my groove a little bit with that property. And as much as I could have owned it and controlled it from out of state, I just figured it'd be better to actually pull all that money back in, put it in, invest it here locally. And so that's what I was doing, right? So I put it out there off market. Hey, I got this deal. You guys can step into my position. I know it's like $140,000 cash to get into a deal is a lot of money, but here's the thing. I think if anyone would have actually really sat down and done their legwork and done the homework and done the math, I think they would have seen that they could have even borrowed that 140,000 and put it toward this property. And even making payments on that borrowed money, plus the payments making on the 2.99% loan, which is like $1,800 a month and a little bit of change. Like they could have easily paid the mortgage, paid the private money, and still generated at least $500, $600, $700, possibly $1,000 a month income on this property. Okay, because that's the value of a low interest rate. So the fact that I didn't get any takers on that was a little bit of a surprise to me. I'm going to be honest. Every once in a while, even I get surprised at this stuff. Like, okay, well, maybe I priced it too high. Maybe it's just too much money. Maybe it's not as good a deal as I thought it was. And so with that being said, I thought, well, if I'm going to go put it on the market on MLS, I'm going to test and see if my price is too high. And the way that I test things is I price it. If I really want to know what the market's going to tell me, I actually price it a little bit higher than I think it should get, with the anticipation that maybe in a week or so I'll drop the price, right? But I priced this at $494,900. So let's call it $495, okay? And I got locked up with a buyer, a cash buyer. They're going to use conventional financing, but they can go cash if they need to. This cash buyer, hey Tyrone, good to see you. Tyrone just jumping on here. Anyway, this cash buyer coming in, and these are legit buyers. I vetted them. I've seen their pre-approvals. I've seen their proof of funds, all that stuff. They bought it at $495,000. Okay, I was offering it 2 weeks ago at $475,000. Okay, plus owner carry financing. Like, I'm willing to let someone come in and take over. Why is it that so many people looked at it, saw the pitch deck? They actually saw that they said, man, this actually looks like a really good deal. It's well done. I understand it. And then they back away from it. Why is it that some people just never seem to get it? That's what I'm kind of titling this broadcast today. My theory is this. Okay. Now, first of all, I want to say this. MLS exposes a deal to a much, much broader audience, right? So if you guys ever are getting rid of a property, if you can get it on MLS, which I do this with my deals when I really want to, I try to avoid it because it opens up a whole can of worms with disclosures and all kinds of stuff that you have to do with MLS. But sometimes it's worth it, right? In this case, I'm going to make $20,000 more than I would have if I sold it off market. So MLS is definitely going to be the better way because it exposes you to a much broader range of buyers. But here's the thing. There's so many people that looked at this deal and they said, nah, no, I'm going to pass. Okay. I personally think this. I think that a lot of people, they do not know how to assess and weigh out the balance between risk and reward properly. And the only thing that they really see is risk. Okay. And I want to explain what I mean by that. Now, we all understand that in real estate investing, at least I hope you understand this. Give me a 1 in the comments. Give me a 1 in the chat if you understand that real estate involves risk. Real estate is risky business. Okay, thank you, Kevin. Got a 1 there. Real estate is risky business, right? I always start off my meetups there in Portland area when we do our meetups every third Thursday. Coming up here, by the way, I always start off my meetups by going through our values, what we believe as a group. And one of the values that we have is that failure is an option. It absolutely is an option, right? So you can fail in this business. Now, you can fail forward or you can fail and bomb out, but you can fail. Failure happens all the time. So you understand there's a certain element or a certain amount of risk that we allow for in the real estate investing business, okay? Andy says, yes, he gets it. Okay. We agree with that, right? Now, The problem comes up is that when people look at a property and they see risk and that's the only thing they see, okay? So someone presents a deal and the only thing that they see is risk and they don't know how to assess risk versus reward. So in other words, I would just expect that if you're on the show today, if you're watching this replay later, whether you're watching live or later, I would assume that you have some interest in real estate investing, right? So you're here, that's why you're watching. This isn't a show about knitting or crocheting or politics or, we're just really not getting into that. I don't really understand a lot of stuff. All I know is a little bit about real estate. So I understand that if you're here, then you're probably along the same wavelength, at least to a certain degree, that you understand real estate has a reward element to it that is an incentive for people to get involved, right? In other words, the potential of living a life where passive income is paying your bills, that's pretty cool, right? That's the reward factor. The potential for doing a flip and having a 30, 40, 50, 60, $100,000 payday at the end of the deal, that's a great reward, right? So we understand that, getting a paper signed, getting a deal under contract and then wholesaling that contract, assigning it. There's, making a $5, $10, $15,000 assignment fee. There's a certain amount of risk, yes, but the reward is usually greater, right? So then the question comes up is how do we actually assess risk properly? Okay, now I want to go over today real quickly with the time we have today. I want to go over 3 different types of risk, okay? So I want you guys to get involved with me and I want you guys to type this back in the comments, okay? Type this back in the comments. The first kind of risk is the risk of no risk. Okay, somebody type back the risk of no risk, or just type in no risk, okay? What do I mean by that? The risk of no risk. In other words, if we're looking at a deal and we're trying to assess risk versus reward, we have to factor in risk, right? Would you agree? So as we're doing that, and we're looking at the risk involved, the first risk that we need to actually account for is, Dave's got it, the risk of no risk. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is if we spend our entire life never taking any risk, that in and of itself is risky business. Would you agree? Peggy says no risk. Exactly. So you guys get this, that whenever I'm saying there is a risk in not ever taking risk. You see what I'm saying? Tyrone says risk. But we're talking about risk, brother. So it's risk like it's risky business, okay? So there's the risk of no risk, okay? So in other words, if I just decide that the world is a really scary place and I just don't want to get hurt by walking out into the world, then I might just decide to stay inside my house for the rest of my life, okay? Now the problem with doing that is that in and of itself has certain consequences that come with it, right? So if I just decide I'm never going to take any risk, I'm just going to keep my head down, I'm just going to plow, I'm just going to clock in, clock out, do my thing, and just not get involved with anything that's risky, that in and of itself is risky because of what typically happens to people that don't take any risk at all is they end up basically their entire life eventually becomes a series of people dictating to you what you're going to do. In other words, if you take the no risk approach when it comes to employment or income, here's how your life is going to go. You're going to say, I'm not going to get involved with real estate and entrepreneurship and having my own business and, having a side hustle. I'm not doing all that stuff because that's risky. I could end up losing money, or people might think that I'm, a scoundrel or I'm trying to rip them off or whatever. I don't want to learn how to be a salesperson. Like, I don't want people to think I'm trying to sell them a used car. All these different excuses that people come up with for never taking any risk. That risk in and of itself is a risk in and of itself, in the sense that what you end up having is a boss or a culture or a retirement or a Medicaid that eventually ends up dictating to you what you can and can't do. Right now, for instance, and I know this is a little bit controversial, but right now, for instance, there's a lot of people talking about SNAP, and we'll just call it what it is. It's food stamps is what it used to be, right? And by the way, I have myself, my wife and I have had times in our life where we experienced having to be on some kind of state help with our child, our second boy being born. We were broke as a joke. It was in the middle of winter. And so I understand that this is not at all a slight on anybody that needs help or assistance. But here's the thing: when you have people who their only way of sustaining their life is by government funding or government help, that and of course there's exceptions to the generalities that we all paint here, right? So, but what I'm saying is this: when you have a life that is completely dependent on government, then that is super risky business. Would you agree? That's pretty risky. For for you to assign all of your well-being, including your very food that you need to stay alive. And of course, this is true at healthcare. Remember the Obama phones? There's like this whole culture of just give, 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 right? It's like those horse leeches mentioned over in the book of Proverbs. Right. So there's this culture of I'm going to have the government owes me. Okay, well, that is a risk in and of itself, because now you are waiting or depending on the government, regardless of which side of the political aisle you're on. It's kind of crazy to think that a lot of people will just assign their entire life's, responsibilities and possibilities over to another entity, just wholesale, just turn it on over. Like, that's crazy. That's a risk that some people take. Most of those folks that are totally dependent on government sustenance, most of those folks are not business owners. They're not entrepreneurs. They're not going to ever spend any of their own money or sacrifice a little bit of extra so that they can have an opportunity to invest. It's like they are no risk people. Okay. And I understand, again, I'm painting with a very broad brush right now, but the point is this: you have to be willing to take risks if you expect to ever have a reward. Okay. Now, so does that make sense, you guys? Give me a thumbs up. Give me some hearts in the, I don't know how it all works where you're at, but give me something, right? Give me a yes if that makes sense, if you get that. The risk of no risk, right? The risk of no risk is risky business. Okay. Oh, cool. Kevin says Facebook is good on his end. Thank you. Peggy says, I take so many risks every day. I'm grateful I have the opportunities. That's right. Okay, perfect. Tyrone says, yes, he's getting it. Perfect. Tyrone, appreciate you being here. He says, I've not given up. I appreciate that. I know you haven't, man. I see you out there hustling, trying. That's good. Keep it up. Okay. So then now let's talk about the second kind of risk. Okay. So there's the risk of no risk, and that is in fact risky business. Because even if you just decide, I'm just going to stand right here and I'm never going to move again, because if I take one step forward or one step backwards or one step side to side, it could be my end. And so you just decide to stand still. Well, the whole entire world moves on past you. So you can't be the kind of person that just takes no risk at all. But there's another kind of risk. And this is what we would call reckless risk or foolish risk. Okay, an example of this would be, if I said, hey, I really need to get over to the other side of Interstate 5, at about 5:36 in the afternoon, or in the evening, and I know I can get over there. I believe I can do it, and I can do it. And you know what? I might even like claim a scripture verse. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, or I just believe I'm going to manifest myself on the other side, and I can almost see myself there. Well, it's like, but I'm a little bit, I know there's cars coming, so I'd rather just ignore those cars. So I'm going to do this. I'm just going to put a blindfold around my face, and I'm just going to walk across Interstate 5. I'm just going to believe that I'll get to the other side. You know what? That's not the risk of no risk, but that is reckless risk. That's foolish risk, right? Does that make sense? Peggy says, every time I get in the car with you, I take a risk. Ouch. Ouch. Peggy Stevens, man, bringing in the heat. I'm not that bad of a driver. So there's a different kind of risk, and that's the risk of no risk. Okay, that's the risk where you're like, I'm going to do it, and you don't calculate, you don't count the cost. Jesus actually talks about this, right? He talks about, hey, count the cost. If you're going to go to warfare, if you're going to build a house, if you're going to follow me, Jesus said you need to count the cost. Okay, there's a cost involved. There are risks that need to be factored in. And it's no different when it comes to real estate investing. you have to look at the actual risk. In other words, some of you guys send me stuff that you think is a deal, and it's like you look at it, it's like there's no meat on the bone, there's no real motivation on the part of the sellers, or you've got multiple factors, and sometimes some of the stuff that we look at that we think is worth going forward on, if you were to actually sit and stop and consider all the factors involved, what you actually find out is it's not really a deal at all. Okay, example of this recently, we were working on a property over here in the southern Idaho area. Got a couple of deals going on right now, and I was working with Kevin and with David, and we're going through and kind of calculating and looking at some different properties that we might make an offer on. And in fact, I've been out and seen this one particular property. It seemed like it would be a really good location for what we're wanting to do. Has a really nice, a lot of trees on it, which is kind of uncommon here in this southern Idaho area, kind of high desert. So, we're looking at it, it's like, man, this is a really nice property. It's big enough. We can kind of do a couple of different things. It's already got some infrastructure on it. It's got a well, it's got septic, it's got power, it's got a big barn. Let's go ahead and make an offer. So we're sitting there like, okay, well, what is the offer that we make? And we started doing the calculations, start running the actual numbers, start doing the underwriting. And within just a couple of meetings that we had with our Zoom calls back and forth a little bit, we discovered that this property really isn't worth what the seller is asking for. Now, it's kind of a unique property, yes. It does have some infrastructure, yes, and it is in an area that we want it to be, yes. But the property itself is just priced too high, and meaning this, that even though there's things that we could do with the property that could be potentially very lucrative, the amount of money that has to be spent just to get to the potential payday, it's so not guaranteed, and there's so much money involved to get to a potential payday. We're talking about like between the purchase price and then the actual infrastructure to get something built so that we can recoup some money from the purchase price. We're talking about spending around $1.5 million in just total expenses so that we can hopefully make around a $500,000 return. And that's a big maybe. Now, that's the kind of deal that's just, it's risky. And you say, well, there's potential there. Boy, we could do this, that, and the other. Yes, there's risk, but there's also there's the kind of risk that you look at it and say that would be might be a little bit too risky to roll the dice on something like that in today's current market, right? Especially in a lending environment like we have right now, where the cost of getting a loan is so high right now, and a lot of people don't qualify. There's government shutdown in motion. Now, I'm not saying that we take all these factors and we just don't do anything. That goes back to the risk of no risk, right? We don't believe in that kind of risk. That's too risky. There's also this reckless risk or this foolish risk where it's like, we're just going to make something happen, and we're just going to put the blindfold on and just walk across Interstate 5, and we're just going to manifest it. And I believe we're going to speak to the universe, and the universe is going to respond to whatever we tell it. And there's a lot of people that really, really get hurt and get burned and they lose their money. Listen, I got some of the best advice that I ever got on investing when I first started doing this, right after I did my first flip. And I was able to talk to my wife's grandfather a little bit about his dealings in real estate and some development back in the 60s. And I said, what's your best advice for somebody that's getting into real estate and getting into investing? And he sat there and thought for a minute, and this guy's done a lot of deals. And he goes, and he kind of has this kind of older voice. He goes, never invest more than you can afford to lose. And I thought, well, that actually makes a lot of sense. Never invest more than you can afford to lose. And so we talk about risk. We're not talking about going out and just taking foolish risk, just risk for the sake of being risky. Now, there's certain things you can do, or you can allow maybe like your pride or your ego, right? That's something you can risk, right? You could just be one of those people that's like, you know what? I don't like the idea of being embarrassed, but I'm going to start making calls. I'm going to start making videos. I'm going to start sending out offers. I'm going to go to the meetups. I'm going to, raise my hand and introduce myself. I'm going to actually take that risk. And that's a good kind of risk. Okay. Even if it's risky business still, but that's because the only thing you have to lose is your pride, or having your feelings be hurt, or being a little bit embarrassed, or maybe being someone saying, well, you don't know what you're doing, or how many deals have you done? And you're like, well, I haven't done any deals. Okay, well, that's risky, yes, but that's not the kind of risk that should keep you from actually being active in this business. No, what I'm talking about is the risk of making offers that are going to involve other people's money, or going to involve large sums of your own money. And you make those kind of offers and you put it out there and you just make stuff happen, and it can be very, very detrimental if you're not careful. Okay. So we have the risk of no risk. That's right. Then we have the reckless risk or foolish risk. Somebody type it in the comments, foolish or reckless risk. But then we have a third kind of risk, and this is the kind of risk that is proper. Okay. This is what we call calculated risk. Calculated risk. This is not the risk of no risk, which is potentially the greatest risk. This is not foolish, reckless risk where we're just rolling the dice and I hope something good happens. No, this is calculated risk where you sit down and you look at the deal and you look at the numbers and you look at the potential problems. Yes, there are potential problems that come up. There are issues with every single deal. Nothing is going to be 100% smooth sailing. I'm going to say it again. Nothing is going to be 100% smooth sailing all the way. But after a while, what you do is you start actually looking and you start saying, okay, I'm not going to just do deals just for the sake of doing deals. By the way, I've been so guilty of that. I just want to back up a little bit and say I have been very guilty of doing deals because my confidence level is so high, and it's been adjusted, believe me. But I've always just had this attitude that we can figure it out. Like, we can do this. Like, it doesn't matter what happens, we'll figure it out, right? And so because I have a high level of confidence, because I have, a relatively higher than average, maybe would be a better way of putting it than just saying high, but I have a relatively decent level of not just confidence, but also competence, right? It's not just about having confidence, but also, are you competent at the thing that you're attempting to do? Well, I've been doing this for long enough to kind of have a little bit of an edge, so to speak. So yeah, I can figure it out. I know what's the worst that could happen, right? And so I've been in, some situations where I'm looking at the deal that I'm right in the middle of. I'm like, this is not a good deal. This is not a deal that I wish I was working on right now. Because, by the way, for every bad deal that you get stuck trying to figure out how to make it good, or make it at least, not so bad, there's other deals that you're missing out on. And so the way that I got myself into these deals that weren't that great is because I didn't take enough time to calculate the risk potential and really actually kind of weigh things out. Peggy says that's me in life. Well, Peggy, that's you and I both to a certain extent. Some of us just have the fortune or misfortune, depending on how you look at it, of just kind of being adventure seekers, and we're okay with whatever happens. And Peggy, I know that you're a risk taker because, like you said, every time you get in the car with me, you take a risk. Peggy lets me drive her car, by the way, because she knows that it drives me crazy driving at the Peggy speed. So she said, Daddy taught me how to make good lemonade. That's right. If life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right? Count the costs. I love that here. Count the costs, pay the price, reap the reward. And by the way, that's so great. Sherry, you actually set this up perfectly for this. How do you know if something is worth taking? Like, you do the calculations. How do you know if it's the kind of risk that you want to take? Well, that's where the reward factors in. Okay. And some of you are watching this right now. You're listening to this, and I want to tell you right now, I want to give you permission to aim higher. Okay. What do I mean by that? I mean, when you're calculating the possible reward, some of you have settled for a low threshold when it comes to the reward factor, and you're not actually shooting for the potential that you are capable of. I didn't say you deserve it. Someone says, I just deserve to have all this. No, you don't. None of us deserve anything. What we do have is we have opportunity. We have potential. All of us have potential. Nobody deserves anything. That whole idea of I deserve this. I've earned this. Well, maybe not. That's arguable, right? That's subjective. There's somebody out there right now that's saying, the government owes it to me to buy my food and my groceries this week. Maybe, maybe not. That's subjective. That's debatable. Okay, I know this, that every good and perfect gift cometh down from the Father above, right? From the Father of lights, in whom is no shadow of variables turning. In other words, I believe that all the good things we have in this life come from God, and I believe that God oftentimes will bless and reward those who are putting in the effort and, look at this, taking certain risks. Why? Because risk is a lot like faith. Okay, risk and faith, if you want to put it this way, risk and faith are like two twin sisters, right? So why? Because they both require you to be able to see outcomes that are not visible. Okay, so when I look at risk, I'm able to see the potential outcome for the reward, but I have to actually realize that there's certain outcomes here that are potential, even though I can't see it right now. And so we talk about risk and faith and rewards and blessings and benefits and reaping what we sow. We want to be really careful that we don't put like, look at me, I have all these things because I deserve it. It's not because we deserve it, but there is a certain amount of risk that you have to be willing to take, and you have to look at the reward and you have to say, you know what, that reward, the potential for the return on this investment is worth it. In other words, yes, there's a whole bunch of things that could go wrong. And in fact, it almost is a guarantee that things will go wrong. Okay. But because of the fact that the reward is so potentially worth it, I'm going to take this risk. I'm going to do it with understanding. I'm going to do it knowing what I'm getting myself into. I'm going to do it knowing that I'll probably, have my patience tested, right? You have to be willing to see the reward and know if it's a high enough or a more valuable enough reward. I'll give you an instance. This doesn't always have to do with money, by the way. The reward can be the benefits of learning something that you want to learn without having to necessarily take money out of your pocket and pay to learn it. Okay, here's something I've done personally in my life. I have found people who are doing what I want to do, and I have found a way to get around them. Sometimes it's by paying a price. Sometimes it's by offering my services and actually not just saying, hey, I can do certain things, but really just actually making sure that I show up when they need it or when they're not even expecting it. I actually get stuff done. And I don't do it saying, well, you could pay me if you want to. One of the great stories or examples of this in real time was one of my mentors working with another one of my mentors. So Pace Morby, when he first got around or heard of Jerry Norton, you guys give me a Jerry in the comments. Give me a Jerry if you know who Jerry Norton is. Okay. So Jerry Norton is somebody's kind of an OG in the real estate space. He's been at it for a long time. I think like 20 something years now. And he's been doing this real estate investing in Michigan and Arizona, down in, I think he was down in Costa Rica, a lot of places. He's out in Tennessee now. So Jerry Norton is, the flipster. I mean, he's got like this whole system. And so Pace Morby down in Arizona wants to do deals with Jerry Norton. Okay. Because you guys know who Jerry Norton is. Cool. Okay. So Jerry Norton makes a post somewhere on Facebook or somewhere in one of these real estate investment groups that he's looking for a contractor to help him with a retaining wall on his house. Okay, he's got a retaining wall that's kind of starting to cave in, and so Pace Morby at this time is really still coming into his own as far as real estate investing goes. He's still, if you guys remember, Pace Morby was a general contractor for a number of years, until he didn't get paid by a guy, and that kind of forced him to shift. And I don't want to tell his story, but the point is, Pace Morby is a contractor. He still has all of these different relationships with subcontractors and stuff. So Pace Morby jumps on the phone, gets his best landscape, hardscape guy, and says, hey, we're going to go over to this property. I just want you to give me a price, and I need you to give me the best price you can, and we're going to get started doing it. So Pace Morby basically like sends his own guy over to do this job and pays his guy to do this job for Jerry Norton. Okay. Like pays his guy, like no with no risk. And so, and Jerry Norton's like, wait, who are you? What are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm doing this job for you. I'm like, who are you working for? I'm working for Pace Morby. Pace Morby, who is that? So Jerry Norton and Pace Morby end up meeting because Pace Morby wants to be involved in the whole thing, all the stuff that he wants to learn from him. He wants to be friends with him. He wants to kind of connect. So he puts himself out there. He took a risk, right? But it was calculated. And judging by the kind of character that he perceived Jerry would have, it paid off, right? He was like, okay, I know it's a risk, and I know I'm gonna have to pay money to get my guy to do this. And I think it was like I want to say it was like a $15,000 or a $20,000 job that Pace paid his guy, but that put him in Jerry's world. And Jerry's like, who are you, right? Who does that? Well, my name's Pace Morby, and I do that. So that's what he did. And so now those guys, of course, if you guys follow Pace and Jerry, you know that they're together all the time. They work on a lot of stuff together. They both own houses on the lake up there in Kalispell, Montana. They spend family time up there together. It's really, really cool story. So the point is this: that's a huge risk to take, yes, but the reward was worth it. And so we have to be willing to take risk. And the reason why some people never get it, they can look at a deal like the one that I offered there in Portland. They can look at it and they go, 2.99% interest rate. Are you kidding me? Where in the world are you going to find that today? 2.9% interest rate. By the way, that deal, even at the 495,000 that the people who just locked it up and they're buying it, even at that price, there's still a ton of equity in this property. Okay. So I was offering it at a lower price than the market would actually support. I was offering special interest, and I was offering for someone to basically walk into equity, walk into my position. Nobody takes it. Why do people not take deals like that? Because they do not know how to properly assess risk and to see the potential reward. And so here's somebody who walks into the deal. They see it pop up. They're like, that's a deal. We want it. They went and actually, oh, look at this. Jerry says, hey, cool. I love Jerry Norton. Right on. Thank you, Jerry. Listen, guys, if you guys aren't in some of these guys' world, you need to get out there and make sure you're connected with Jerry Norton, with Pace Morby, with Jamil. Of course, they're doing the big tour right now. The point is this: when you see people working together, by the way, that's one of the main inspirations that I had for doing the meetup that I started in the Portland area, for doing the meetups we're doing in Boise now, is because I saw Pace and Jerry and Jamil and at the time some other guys. I saw them working together. Even though they were actually competitors, they were collaborating, and I really did see collaboration was better than competition. And so when you see people actually out there working together, you see these examples, it actually is very inspiring. So thank you, Jerry, for jumping on here today. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for leading the way with people like Pace and Jamil and these other guys and people that you're working with in all kinds of spaces in the real estate world. So, guys, I hope that this makes sense to you. You've got to be willing to take some risk. You've got to be willing to see the potential reward, and you've got to be willing to actually assess things properly. I'm not talking about reckless risk, okay? I'm talking about running your numbers properly. I'm talking about doing your underwriting properly. But I'm saying when you know it's something that is potentially a deal, then make an offer, get after it. If you need to get some training and education, buy the course, do the work, okay? Get involved in some of these mentorships. There's so many good ones out there right now. And if you don't know what a good one is, then ask. You guys are in the PDX REI group, you're in the TV REI group, you're in the Pensacola off-market leads deal. Ask for it. Like, just say, hey, what's a good one? What have you guys found to be effective? What have you guys found to be valuable? And I absolutely mean it when I say this. Like, if I can help you guys, I want to help you. That's why we do these broadcasts. That's why I try to put this information out there, because I want to see you guys win. But even more importantly than that, I want you to become the kind of person that can take calculated risk and can say, no, that's not a deal. No, I'm sorry, that's not a deal. And here's why. Okay, become that person. But you'll never be that person if you don't take some risk. So hopefully that helps you guys today. I hope that this makes sense, okay? I'm not trying to preach at you, even if it was a little bit preachy. See, even Sherry said, it got a little bit preachy there, okay? Patience, yep, it's going to take time. But the cool thing here today is that I think that this group, you guys that are on here, I think that you guys have the right kind of motive. I think you have the right kind of heart. I think you guys have the right kind of attitude. Like, you're willing to take the risk. But remember, there's the risk of no risk. That's super risky business. There's reckless risk where you're just blindfold going in. I just believe I'm going to manifest. I'm just going to, speak it into existence. And a lot of people speak themselves into bankruptcy or into high credit card bills with no way of paying it off because they didn't really actually factor in everything. And they just went in and just bought the course thinking that if I buy the course, something's going to happen. No, you've got to actually put in the work too, right? And so it's the calculated risk. That's what we want to go after. I think that's the kind that's going to actually be most beneficial for you guys. So, okay, guys, that's all I had today. If you guys have some questions, feel free to ask. I'll stay on for just another minute or two. If you guys have a question, drop it in the chat. I'll answer it for you live here on the show, but hopefully that makes sense. By the way, that deal, I will be posting everything about that deal that I was talking about. I'll be posting everything about that in one of our upcoming broadcasts. We have to wait for it to close, obviously. So nothing is done in real estate until the money is wired to the account. So Peggy, thank you for mentioning Brent Daniels. Yeah, Brent Daniels as well. That's one of the guys, TTP with Brent Daniels. Love those guys. Brent Daniels, Jamil Damji, Jerry Norton, Pace Morby. These guys have really revolutionized the industry when it comes to real estate. And so by the way, I'm in all 4 of their mentorships now, some to different levels, but I have learned from so many different people, and I have paid money to be in their world. I didn't go and actually rebuild their retaining walls, but I did pay to be a part of their mentorships and their groups because I believe that's a good way to get the value that I perceive that they have to offer. And I think it's proper to pay for that, right? We take a lot of stuff free, and that's fine. We do this for free. There's no cost. Hopefully it brings value, but actually learning the nuts and bolts, that kind of stuff, we absolutely can calculate that and say, hey, it's worth paying the price. So, all right, Tyrone says Jerry's been sending you things, learning from him. Yep, Jerry's got a lot of great resources. Flipster, also with the PropWire. If you guys are looking for ways to calculate the value of properties and you're not wanting to pay for all that, you can use PropWire. You can get a free account. You can actually pay on credits where you're actually getting information like skip tracing stuff. You can get that all on credit. I used to have an affiliate code. I should have it and drop it in here. But anyway, you guys can go out and check it out, propwire.com. So Peggy says PB, J&J. PropWire is free. That's right. Now you can pay for, there's things you can pay for too, but for the most part, you can get a lot of stuff for free. Guys, hopefully this is helpful today. If you don't have any other questions, if you don't have anything else to offer today, if you don't have anything else that I can help you for or help you with, then please, just go ahead and follow me, tag me on John Buys Houses on Instagram. If you guys appreciated this show today, make sure you tag me and I'll give you a shout out back. If you are not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, then please make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's at John Buys Houses, the number 4 real. Turn on the notifications because I'm doing lives every now and then on an unscheduled basis. So I just did one the other day. Had some feedback from that. So anyway, guys, appreciate you being here today. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help out. And Tyrone says, Pastor John, do you buy RV and mobile parks? Yes, I can. I have not before. I want to be really clear about that. I have not before, but I've looked at several. Doing the underwriting on those is a little bit, you got to make sure you get your underwriting correct. But Tyrone, if you have one that you'd like me to look at, feel free to send it over. I know that Kevin Smith has looked at some of those as well. So you guys reach out to Kevin Smith and he can help you out with that stuff too. Okay, everybody. God bless. Get back to work. We'll see you on the next show. And don't forget to mark the 3rd Thursday in Beaverton, Oregon. We're going to be together for the PDX REI Group meetup. Got a special event planned for everybody that's going to be there. We'll have the event posted in the Facebook group soon. So we'll see you guys soon. And if you have any questions about anything, go ahead and make comments here. Even if it's not the live, I'll go back through and answer it. So until then, see you guys later. And we'll hope you have a great